The wicked king of Veyrion had many names, but none spoken aloud. In the marketplaces, mothers hushed their children when his banners passed. In the court, nobles bowed low and spoke carefully, measuring every word as if it might cost them their heads. Even the walls of the Black Palace seemed to lean inward, as though listening, as though afraid. King Alaric did not need to shout to inspire terror. His silence was enough. It was that silence the council feared most, and hoped to cure. "A quiet queen," Lord Chancellor Mero said, fingers steepled as he faced the assembled lords. "That is what His Majesty requires. A woman who will soften his temper. One who will not provoke him. One who will not rule." Several heads nodded. Too many. The last queen had spoken too freely. She had challenged decrees, questioned executions, pleaded for mercy where none was intended. Her voice had echoed through the throne room once. It had never echoed again. So the council searched not for brilliance, nor lineage, nor ambition. They searched for absence, for a woman small enough to disappear beside the throne. They found her in Thornfall. Elara of Thornfall arrived at the capital with no retinue, no jewels, and no visible fear. She wore a simple gown of gray silk and kept her dark hair bound low at her neck. Her eyes were steady, her expression mild. She curtsied precisely, spoke only when spoken to, and never raised her voice above a murmur. "She'll do," someone whispered. No one bothered to look deeper. No one asked why her name had once been erased from every university registry in the kingdom, or why the border guards flinched when they recognized her face but could not remember where from, or why the scribes who processed her marriage documents found several years of her life missing. Elara did not correct them. The wedding was held at dusk, when the sun bled red through the palace windows and stained the marble floors like old sins. The court gathered in hushed splendor, draped in velvet and gold, eager to witness the taming of their king. Elara walked alone down the aisle. She did not tremble. King Alaric waited at the altar, tall and still, his crown resting like a blade upon his brow. His eyes, cold, calculating, endlessly watchful, assessed her as she approached. He had expected nerves, fear, at least the instinctive bow of a prey animal standing too close to a predator. He saw none of it. Her gaze did not linger, but neither did it flee. She stopped before him, hands folded, posture perfect. A queen prepared to vanish. The vows were spoken. Elara repeated them clearly, without emphasis. She promised obedience, silence, loyalty. The court exhaled as one. The wicked king said nothing extra. He did not smile. He simply placed the ring upon her finger, sealing the arrangement like a sentence passed. When it was done, Elara bowed her head at last. Only then. That night, the palace celebrated with a feast meant to reassure the kingdom. Music echoed through the halls, wine flowed, laughter crept cautiously into corners long starved of it. Elara sat at the king's right hand and said nothing. She did not eat much. She did not laugh. She did not attempt conversation. When spoken to, she answered politely and briefly, her voice soft enough to fade into the background. Just as planned. Yet King Alaric watched her from the corner of his eye. He had learned long ago that silence was not the absence of sound, but of intention. And Elara's silence was deliberate. She never slouched, never fidgeted, never lost awareness of the room. Her eyes tracked conversations without appearing to. Her stillness was not submissive. It was controlled. When the feast ended, the king retired early. He had no interest in pretending to be a husband. The marriage was a political necessity, nothing more. But as he entered his chambers, he found something waiting on his desk. A letter. No seal. No signature. Just a single sheet of parchment, folded neatly, placed where only someone with intimate knowledge of the room would dare. The guard swore no one had entered. The king unfolded it slowly. His breath stilled. The writing was in cipher, an old philosophical code used decades ago to spread forbidden ideas among scholars and dissenters. A code the king himself had outlawed. a code whose creator had been dragged through these very halls in chains. A philosopher accused of inciting rebellion through thought alone. A philosopher named Aurelian Vox, executed by royal decree. The letter was short. Silence is not peace, it is merely the pause before collapse. The king crushed the parchment in his fist. Impossible. He had watched Vox die, had watched the blood spill, had ordered every trace of his work burned. And yet the hand that wrote this, he knew it. When the king turned, Elara stood in the doorway. She had dismissed her attendants. Her gown was simpler now, unadorned. She bowed her head respectfully, just as a quiet queen should. "You sent for me, your majesty?" Her voice was calm, neutral, empty. The king searched her face for deceit and found none that resembled fear. "Did you enter my study tonight?" he asked. "No. Did you send this letter?" She looked at the crushed parchment in his hand, then back at him. "I did not send it," she said truthfully. The king studied her for a long moment. "Do you recognize the writing?" A pause. Carefully measured. "Yes." The room went very still. The king stepped closer. "Explain." Elara met his gaze fully now, and for the first time, something sharp glinted beneath her calm. "It belonged to a man who believed ideas were more dangerous than swords," she said. "He was right. You speak of a dead traitor. I speak of a teacher." The silence between them thickened. "You will not speak of him again," the king said softly. "Not if you value your life." Elara lowered her eyes. "As you wish, my king." She turned to leave. At the doorway, she stopped. Without turning back, she said quietly, "May I offer one piece of advice?" The king did not answer. She continued anyway. "Those who demand silence rarely survive it." Then she was gone. King Alaric stood alone in his chamber, the echoes of her footsteps fading like a warning he could not yet name. Outside, the city slept, unaware that the woman chosen to disappear had already begun to move the kingdom. And far below the palace, in hidden rooms and shadowed streets, words long forbidden began to circulate once more. Not shouted, not proclaimed, whispered, because the most dangerous revolutions always began quietly. The first whisper reached the palace disguised as good news. At dawn, as the Black Palace stirred and servants hurried through its corridors like nervous ants, a messenger arrived breathless from the eastern quarter. He carried no banners, no blood, no signs of unrest, only a ledger and a confused expression. "The dock workers have ended their strike, your majesty," the man reported to King Alaric, kneeling low. They returned to work before the guard could be dispatched. "No violence, no demands." Alaric's fingers tightened on the arm of his throne. "Strikes do not end without cause," he said. "Who spoke to them?" The messenger hesitated. "No one we could identify, sire. They claimed the idea simply spread." Ideas again. By midday, a second report arrived. Then a third. A merchant guild that had bribed its way out of tariffs voluntarily dissolved. A magistrate infamous for selling verdicts resigned his post and vanished from the city. In the southern villages, farmers began paying taxes early, yet with revised calculations that exposed a long-hidden embezzlement scheme within the treasury. None of it involved bloodshed. None of it involved banners or speeches or rebellion. It was as if the kingdom itself had begun correcting its own fractures. Alaric summoned his spymaster before the hour bell finished ringing. Lord Kalen was a thin man with hollow eyes and a voice like dry parchment. He had survived 3 kings by hearing everything and believing nothing. "Tell me who is responsible," Alaric ordered. Kalen bowed. "We are trying, your majesty. Try faster." The spymaster laid several pamphlets on the table. They were small, unassuming, written in clean, careful script. When law forgets justice, obedience becomes a lie. Power that fears questions deserves them. Alaric recognized the phrasing instantly. "They're using Vox's structure," he said coldly. "Yes, but not his name. The writings circulate without attribution. They appear in markets, taverns, workshops, left behind like dropped coins. People read them, discuss them, then pass them on. Burn them. We have, Kaelin replied. More appear. Alaric rose from his throne. No movement crosses my kingdom without my consent, he said. Find the source. Kaelin hesitated. There is a pattern, sire. Alaric turned. The ideas surface first wherever Her Majesty has recently traveled. Silence struck the room like a blade. Elara's days were predictable. She visited orphanages, convents, hospitals, places the court dismissed as harmless. She spoke little. She listened much. She asked questions that seemed idle, even naive. How much does bread cost now? Who decides that? What happens if you refuse? Harmless questions. Until they weren't. Alaric dismissed the spymaster with a gesture and stood alone in the throne room, staring at the empty space beside the crown where his queen sat during court. He had wanted quiet. He had married calculation. That evening, he summoned Elara. She arrived promptly, dressed simply, hands folded. She bowed, eyes lowered. You've been busy, the king said. I attend to my duties, she replied. Your duties do not include restructuring my kingdom. Then perhaps, Elara said gently, your definition of duty is incomplete. Alaric circled her slowly, like a hunter evaluating a trap. You deny involvement? I deny nothing you can prove. A flicker of something, amusement perhaps, crossed her face and vanished. You spread Vox's teachings, the king said. You incite thought. You undermine fear. I remind people they can think, she corrected. Fear does the rest on its own. Alaric stopped before her. You know the penalty for sedition. Yes, she said calmly. I also know the penalty for ignorance. It just takes longer. The king stared at her, waiting for fear to surface. It didn't. Instead, Elara tilted her head slightly. Would you like to know why the dock workers returned to work? Against his better judgment, Alaric asked. Why? Because they realized the port master skimmed wages, she said. Once they understood the math, they didn't need to riot. They needed receipts. The king exhaled sharply. You are playing a dangerous game. No, Elara replied. I'm ending one. That night, Alaric doubled the palace guard. He ordered surveillance tightened. He commanded that Elara's movements be tracked. She did not object. In the days that followed, the whispers grew louder. In taverns, patrons debated laws instead of curses. In academies, students asked why certain books were forbidden. In court, minor nobles began citing precedents the crown had long buried. The king's enemies were being disarmed without a single sword drawn, and that terrified him more than rebellion ever had. Then came the fire. It began in the west wing of the palace. An explosion of heat and smoke meant to kill sleeping royals. Guards rushed in chaos. Bells rang. Steel clashed in the dark. Alaric reached for his sword. Before he could take 3 steps, Elara seized his arm. Not that way, she said urgently. They want you there. The king froze. How do you know? Because I helped predict them. She pulled him into a hidden passage behind the tapestry, a route he had not known existed. You planned this? He demanded as smoke filled the corridor. I planned for it, she replied. There's a difference. They emerged into the lower halls just as assassins burst into the chamber above, blades flashing where the king would have been. By dawn, the traitors were dead or captured. 3 counselors were exposed, men who had argued hardest for a quiet queen. Their bodies were displayed at the palace gates, betrayal carved into stone beside them. The court was shaken. The people whispered a new name, the Quiet Queen. Alaric stood beside Elara as the traitors were revealed, his expression unreadable. You saved my life, he said later, alone with her. I protected the stability of the throne, she answered. Your survival is incidental. He studied her carefully. You could have let me die. Yes. Why didn't you? Elara met his gaze fully. Because dead kings don't listen, she said. And I am not finished speaking to you. For the first time in many years, King Alaric laughed. It was a short, humorless sound, but genuine. You are either the greatest threat this kingdom has ever known, he said, or its salvation. Elara inclined her head. Those two are often the same. Outside the palace, the whispers continued to spread, no longer quite whispers now. And the wicked king realized something unsettling. The kingdom was changing, and for the first time, he was not entirely in control of how. The night the assassins came, the palace slept too easily. That alone should have warned King Alaric. The Black Palace was never truly quiet. There were always boots on stone, whispers in corridors, the low thrum of vigilance that came with ruling through fear. But that night, the silence was deep, padded, deliberate. The guards changed shifts without complaint. The bells did not ring. Even the hounds in the lower courtyards lay still. Alaric lay awake in his chambers, staring at the dark canopy above his bed, listening. He had learned to trust unease more than loyalty. Then he felt it, the smallest disruption in the air, a pressure like a held breath. The door did not creak when it opened. Steel flashed. Alaric rolled just as a blade cut through the space where his throat had been. He grabbed for the dagger beneath his pillow, but a second shadow moved faster, pinning his wrist to the mattress with brutal precision. "Don't," a voice whispered. "Not the assassins. Elara's." The blade froze a hair's breadth from his skin. "Breathe," she murmured, her grip iron strong. "And don't fight me." Alaric stared up at her, fury and disbelief colliding in his chest. "What? Now?" Elara said sharply. The chamber exploded into motion. She twisted the assassin's arm, dislocating it with a sickening crack, then drove her elbow into his throat. He collapsed without a sound. The second assassin lunged, but Elara was already moving. She seized the fallen man's blade and hurled it. The dagger buried itself in the attacker's chest. Silence rushed back in, thick and choking. Alaric surged to his feet, sword in hand, scanning the room. "How many?" he demanded. "3, Elara said. "One fled. On purpose. Why let him go?" She wiped blood from her hands on the assassin's cloak, so he could report failure. The king stared at her. "You knew," he said slowly. "Yes. You knew they were coming tonight. Yes. You let them enter my chambers." Elara met his gaze without flinching. "Yes." The guards burst in moments later, too late and breathing hard. Alaric barked orders, sending half the palace into lockdown. As bodies were dragged away and alarms rang, Elara stood apart, composed amid the chaos. Too composed. When dawn finally crept through the shattered windows, Alaric dismissed everyone but her. The door closed with finality. "Explain," he said. Elara walked to the table and poured herself water, hands steady. "They've been planning this for weeks," she said. "Your counselors, 3 of them, funded the attempt. They feared you were changing." Alaric's jaw tightened. "Changing how?" "Listening." The word landed heavier than any accusation. "You could have warned me," he said. "I did," Elara replied. "You just didn't realize it yet." She produced a folded parchment from her sleeve and slid it across the table. Alaric recognized his own handwriting. "You ordered the Western Guard rotation altered 3 nights ago," she continued. "You thought it was your idea. It wasn't." The king's blood ran cold. "You manipulated me." "I guided you," she corrected. "There's a difference." "Explain the difference." "If I manipulated you," Elara said calmly, "you'd be dead." Alaric laughed once, sharp and incredulous. "You're confessing treason." "No, I'm demonstrating competence." He slammed his hand on the table. "You do not get to decide when my life is a lesson." Elara leaned forward, eyes hard now, the mask finally cracking. "And you do not get to rule blindly," she snapped. "Your fear-based order bred this betrayal. I merely redirected it before it succeeded." The air between them vibrated with fury. "You think yourself untouchable," Alaric said. "No," Elara replied. "I think myself necessary." They stared at one another, the silence stretching until it felt like a third presence in the room. Finally, the king spoke again, his voice low. "You orchestrated an assassination attempt on your own husband." "I dismantled one," she said, "by letting it fail publicly." Publicly. By mid-morning, the court assembled. The 3 counselors were dragged before the throne, pale and trembling. Evidence was laid bare, fund transfers, coded messages, confessions torn from the surviving assassin. The court watched in horror as Elara spoke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with lethal clarity. She detailed the plot, the motive, the timeline. She cited laws the counselors themselves had passed. Statutes allowing execution for treason without trial in times of internal threat. The irony was exquisite. Alaric said nothing. When she finished, the king rose. "Carry out the sentence," he said. By noon, 3 bodies hung at the palace gates. Below them, carved into the stone, were Elara's words. "Silence does not mean loyalty." The city erupted, not in riot, but in awe. The attempt on the king's life became legend by sunset. The people whispered not about the assassins, but about the queen who had outplayed them. She let them try, they said. She wanted them exposed. She's more dangerous than he is. That night, Alaric stood alone on the balcony overlooking the capital. Elara joined him quietly. "You've made yourself indispensable," he said. Elara rested her hands on the stone railing. "I always was. You humiliated my council. They deserved worse. You frightened my court. They needed it." Alaric turned to her. "And what about me?" Elara looked at him then, not as a king, not as a threat, but as a man standing at the edge of something he did not yet understand. "I awakened you," she said. "Whether that frightens you is not my concern." Alaric studied her for a long moment. "You are nothing like the woman I intended to marry." "That woman never existed," Elara replied. "You just needed to believe she did." The king nodded slowly. "Then hear this," he said. "I will not be ruled from the shadows." Elara inclined her head. "Then step into the light." A challenge. A promise. Far below, in the city streets, the whispers changed. They no longer spoke of rebellion. They spoke of alignment. Of a throne now guarded not just by steel, but by foresight. And as King Alaric looked out over his kingdom, one truth became impossible to ignore. He had not married a quiet wife. He had married a strategist who knew exactly how kings fell, and exactly how to keep one alive. After the failed assassination, the kingdom did not breathe easier. It leaned forward. Fear had once flowed in a single direction, from throne to people. Now it fractured, scattered, returned in unpredictable currents. The nobles no longer knew which word might doom them. The people no longer knew whether to praise or beware the crown. And at the center of it all stood 2 figures the kingdom struggled to name. The wicked king still ruled with iron, but now, beside him, stood the quiet queen, no longer invisible, no longer dismissible, and far more terrifying for it. The first foreign letter arrived within the week. It bore the seal of Veyrion, a rival empire that had tested Veyrion's borders for decades. It was addressed not to King Alaric, but to Queen Elara of Veyrion. The king read it in silence. "They're asking for your counsel," he said finally. "Not my allegiance." Elara sipped her tea, unbothered. "They've realized who shifts the ground beneath them." "You are becoming a symbol," Alaric said. "Symbols attract knives. So do crowns." He studied her carefully. "You're changing the balance." "Yes," she agreed. "On purpose." Word spread quickly. Other rulers followed Aurelian's lead. Diplomats requested audiences with the queen. Trade guilds appealed to her for mediation. Scholars sought permission to restore banned academies. Under her patronage, the people began to chant her name during festivals. Not his. That was when the king felt the first true flicker of doubt. He had ruled for years without caring for love or loyalty. Fear had been enough. But fear was no longer the kingdom's dominant language. Elara had introduced something more dangerous. "Oh, you're teaching them to expect more," Alaric said one night, as they stood over a map marked with red ink and shifting borders. "I'm teaching them to understand consequences," Elara replied, "including yours." The king's mouth curved into a thin smile. "You would threaten me? I would warn you," she said. "There's a difference." Their partnership hardened into something formidable. Alaric still crushed open rebellion without mercy. Elara ensured it never had time to form. Where he sent soldiers, she sent ideas. Where he burned nests of treason, she rewrote the laws that had allowed them to exist. They became a system. Efficient, brutal, brilliant, too brilliant. The priests were the first to panic. Ancient prophecy, long dismissed as superstition, resurfaced in the lower temples. It spoke of a quiet queen who would unbind the tongue of the kingdom and bring an end to old thrones. When the king heard of it, he laughed. When Elara heard of it, she went silent. Prophecies shape belief, she said finally. Belief shapes behavior. And Alaric asked, "And if they believe I am meant to end kings," she replied, "they may decide which one." The next unrest came not from the people, but from the army. A general loyal to Alaric confronted him in private. "The men respect you," he said carefully, "but they admire her. Admiration can turn." Alaric dismissed him with a warning, but the seed had been planted. That night, the king dreamed of kneeling crowds and a crown slipping from his hands. Not torn away, but offered to someone else. He woke furious. The next morning, he summoned Elara to the throne room, alone. "You're eclipsing me," he said bluntly. Elara did not deny it. "You knew this would happen," he accused. "Yes. Then why continue?" Elara approached the throne slowly, her steps echoing. "Because the kingdom needs it," she said. "And because you do too." Alaric's voice dropped. "Do not presume to know what I need." "I presume nothing," Elara replied. "I observe." She stopped at the foot of the throne. "You rule through force because you were never shown another way," she said softly. "But force alone fractures over time. You can either evolve or be replaced." The king's hand tightened on the armrest. "By you. By anyone," she said. "Including the future." The words cut deeper than any insult. "You think I'll step aside?" he said. "No," Elara answered. "I think you'll choose." The choice arrived sooner than expected. A coalition of nobles, generals, and priests gathered in secret. They planned not rebellion, but correction. A quiet coup. Alaric would remain king in name. Elara would be removed in silence, exiled, or buried. The plot reached Elara first. She did not tell Alaric. Instead, she tested him. At the next public assembly, Elara proposed a reform, one that limited the king's unilateral authority over executions. The court erupted. All eyes turned to Alaric. This was the moment. He could deny her, silence her, prove he still held absolute power. Instead, he stood. "Approved," he said. Gasps filled the hall. Elara looked at him then, not triumphantly, but searching. That night, the conspirators acted. Guards loyal to the old order moved through the palace, blades ready. They expected confusion. They found preparation. Alaric and Elara stood back to back in the throne room as traitors poured in. The fight was swift and merciless. When it ended, the floor was slick with blood. The surviving conspirators knelt in chains. "You chose," Elara said quietly. Alaric wiped his blade clean. "I will not be replaced," he said. "I will be transformed." The executions were public. The message unmistakable. The kingdom trembled, not at the queen's ambition, nor the king's cruelty, but at the realization that together, they were unstoppable. That night, as fires burned in the distance and bells tolled, Alaric spoke the truth aloud for the first time. "You are not my shadow," he said. "You are my equal." Elara met his gaze. "Then stand with me," she said. "Not above me, not behind me." The wicked king extended his hand. The quiet queen took it. And across the kingdom, the whispers shifted once more, no longer asking who ruled, but whether anyone else ever could. The city of Veyrion had not gathered like this in a generation. From the outer markets to the palace steps, the streets were packed shoulder to shoulder. Merchants abandoned stalls. Soldiers stood unarmed among the people. Bells rang not in warning, but in summons. No one knew exactly why they had come, only that the queen was going to speak. For years, Elara of Thornfall had ruled through silence, through questions whispered into the right ears, through ideas slipped like blades beneath doors, through reforms passed without her name attached. She had never addressed the kingdom directly. That alone made the day dangerous. King Alaric watched the crowd from the high balcony. his expression carved from stone. This was not his instinctive theater. He ruled best from distance, from fear. A public address was vulnerability. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. Elara stood beside him in white, not the color of surrender, but of exposure. "Yes," she replied, "I do." Below them, the murmur of the crowd rose and fell like a restless sea. "Once you speak," Alaric continued, "they will never hear you the same way again." "That is the point," Elara said. The bells fell silent. Elara stepped forward. The crowd stilled, not because she commanded it, but because something in her presence demanded attention. She did not shout. She did not raise her hands. She simply spoke. "My people," she said. The words carried farther than they should have. "I was chosen to be your quiet queen." A ripple of confusion passed through the crowd. "I was meant to smile, obey, and disappear beside a throne built on fear. I was meant to soften a king, without ever being seen." She paused. "I failed." A nervous laugh spread, then died as her gaze hardened. "I was once called a traitor, a philosopher, a danger to order. My name was erased, my work burned, and I was told that silence was mercy." Murmurs surged. "I learned then that silence is never neutral," Elara continued. "It protects power, or it challenges it, and I chose to use it as a weapon." Alaric felt the shift in the crowd before he saw it. They were leaning forward. "I spread ideas quietly," Elara confessed. "I exposed corruption without banners. I allowed enemies to reveal themselves. I manipulated this court. Yes, I did so to save lives that fear would have crushed." Gasps echoed. The king did not move. "I did not act alone," Elara said, turning slightly. "I acted within a system that allowed cruelty to thrive unchecked. A system that rewarded obedience over justice." She looked back at the crowd. "And I married the man who built that system." All eyes flew to Alaric. He stepped forward then, armor gleaming, crown heavy. "I am the wicked king you fear," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly. "I ruled through terror because terror worked. It kept order. Boos rose, and fearfully died. I executed without mercy," he continued. "I silenced dissent. I believed peace required submission." The crowd held its breath. "I was wrong." The word fell like a crack in stone. "I wanted a quiet wife," Alaric said. "I married my match." A wave of sound surged. Shock, awe, anger, hope colliding. Elara raised her hand, and slowly, the noise subsided. "I am not innocent," she said. "I used manipulation where trust should have been built. I pulled strings rather than ask permission." She met the crowd's gaze unflinchingly. "But ask yourselves this. Are you safer today than you were a year ago?" No one answered. "Are your children fed? Are your laws clearer? Are your rulers watched as closely as you are?" Silence answered for them. Elara's voice softened. "I will not pretend I am a savior," she said. "I am dangerous. So is the king." Alaric nodded once. "But danger can be aimed," Elara continued, "and power can be shared." She turned fully to Alaric and knelt. Gasps erupted. "I confess my past," she said. "I confess my defiance. And I ask not forgiveness, but accountability." The king's heart thundered. This was not planned. "Elara," he began. She looked up at him. "Choose," she said quietly. In front of them, the moment stretched, an eternity balanced on a single decision. Then King Alaric did the unthinkable. He removed his crown. The crowd cried out. He knelt. "I wanted silence," he said, "but I needed truth." He placed the crown on the stone between them. "I will rule with her, or not at all." The city held its breath. Elara rose slowly. She did not take the crown. Instead, she extended her hand. Alaric took it. Together, they stood. "Let this be known," Elara said, her voice ringing clear. This kingdom will no longer fear its rulers. She paused. It will watch them. A roar erupted, deafening, unstoppable. From that day forward, the laws of Veyrion changed. Councils gained limits. Courts gained transparency. The crown gained oversight. Not gently, but honestly. Foreign rulers hesitated. Some backed away. Others adapted. The prophecy spread once more, but altered by the people themselves. When the quiet queen spoke, kings did not fall. They learned to stand. That night, as the city celebrated in cautious hope, Alaric and Elara stood alone on the palace walls. "You changed everything," Alaric said. "No," Elara replied. "We did." He looked at her then, not as a threat, not as a rival, but as the one person who had ever truly seen him. "What happens now?" he asked. Elara smiled faintly. "Now," she said, "we rule loudly enough that silence never becomes dangerous again." Below them, the city glowed, not with fire, but with light. And the story spread far beyond Veyrion, carried on whispered warnings and spoken truths. Be careful what kind of silence you demand. Some women are quiet only until the world is ready to listen.